Hello, my beautiful, beautiful friends. I've got another batch of smaller Nintendo stories I've decided to round up into one video. Am I still calling it Top Crawler today? No, let's news roundup. Let's do that again. This is a Topic Arlo Nintendo News Roundup. Let's begin with one news story that actually probably would have gotten its own video if I'd been able to get to it, but it came out a good few days ago, so everyone's probably kind of done talking about it, but I want to include it in here anyway, because it is a very, very, very big deal. Takashi Tezuka is leaving Nintendo, and technically speaking, we're not 100% sure that he's leaving the company entirely. We just know that he's stepping down from his role, but just considering all of the wording and the context and, like his age and everything like that, we can be reasonably sure that he is leaving the company. He's completely retiring. And this is a very big deal because this guy is an underappreciated mastermind at Nintendo. You think like, who are the big legendary designers at Nintendo? Of course, Shigeru Miyamoto comes to mind, Satoru Iwata, and then, in recent years, we've come to know like Yoshiaki Koizumi a lot better. But Takashi Tezuka, I have to imagine maybe he just doesn't like the spotlight that much. Or something. I'm really not sure, but like it's a name that I think is probably a lot less well known. It's the kind of name, it does come up. Like, oh yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar, but like no, like this guy's been there since the beginning. We're talking a lead director slash designer slash producer on some of Nintendo's most iconic franchises, really all the way back to the NES. Like he basically helped Miyamoto create Mario and Zelda, like the early titles from those series, which would then go on to define those series. Like he was there. It would take hours to go over all of the guy's credits, but just like it's anything and everything. And he's been hands-on at Nintendo this entire time. Yoshi's Island. He basically made Yoshi's Island. Did you know he created the Boo character? He did. So Mario and Zelda are his biggest credits, but he's had his hands in Animal Crossing. He's had his hands in Pikmin, and even as recently as Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition Plus Meetup in Bell Park. That too. Miyamoto gets all the credit for creating the characters and creating the concepts. But like Tezuka was the guy who was basically doing a lot of like the hard design work and even like the coding work. Miyamoto was never really into coding. I saw someone put it really well. Miyamoto and Tezuka were basically like Jobs and Wozniak, like there's like the idea guy who gets all the credit, and like you certainly can't like downplay the importance of the ideas, of course. Like I'm not going to downplay Miyamoto and what he did and how he created these series. It's just that then you've got the guy doing the way more hands-on work, really just like building how these things work and just really putting so much into the creation of these games and these series, and just not being as well known, not getting as much credit for it. So yeah, I just wanted to bring up that he was leaving Nintendo. I personally have not done a very good job of recognizing the guy. I have been rather uninformed. Talking about Nintendo is literally my job, and I have been woefully ignorant when it comes to Mr. Tezuka. And it's really crazy to see these legendary figures, the OG guys leaving Nintendo after all these years. Kensuke Tanabe left not too long ago. Miyamoto's still working at Nintendo, but he's pulled back pretty dramatically from game development, although saying that, he does seem to be involved in Star Fox to probably a pretty good degree. But overall, he's mostly working on theme park movies and whatnot. And I see the temptation on the internet to like read into these retirements and be like, oh no, what's happening at Nintendo? The old guard, they're all retiring. I really do just think they're in their 60s and 70s. Like come on. If you helped pioneer just a game company and its systems and its games in the 80s, then yeah, I think just naturally at this point, you're probably ready to retire. And it's, I don't know, it's just really interesting. What direction do we see for the company with all the old guard, slowly retiring? It's It's very interesting. So, thank you, Mr. Tezuka, for everything. I mean, gosh, like really, you cannot possibly thank someone like that enough for their contributions. Like, what do you say to a guy who helped make Mario and Zelda? It's just like, it is too big for words. Moving on, Nintendo recently posted their quarterly financial results. Actually, their financial results for the entire fiscal year running through the end of March. And a lot of like fun little details here and there have been coming out, you know, as interviews and investor Q&As and whatnot are translated. And there's one detail I actually meant to put into my big financial results video, but I totally forgot. One thing that Nintendo did at the end of this fiscal year was buy back a bunch of their shares. This is something they do every once in a while when they have a lot of extra cash. You know, naturally, a company may not necessarily like to be beholden to the whims and desires of its shareholders, people who own a piece of the company and therefore have a say in how the company is run, at least to some degree, but may not necessarily share in the values of the actual executives running the company. And so every once in a while, Nintendo will, basically buy some of its own shares and essentially dissolve them. You know, I'm not 100% sure how all of this works. I will never pretend to know how stocks work, but that just seems to be it. That you buy them back and then just say, poof, they are no more. We burned them in the fireplace. So now there are just that fewer shares to go around to other people. So Nintendo spent 100 billion yen to buy back 11 million of its shares, which accounts for about 0.88% of their overall shares. So a little bit shy of 1% of the company. It's not a tremendous amount of the company, but the company is worth a whole lot of money because, 100 billion yen, that's nothing to sneeze at. That amounts to about $635 million USD. Really a whole lot of money to spend just to buy back some of their shares. But I don't know. I suppose it just means that it's really, really important to them. I don't know what their long-term plan is. Is the idea to eventually buy them all back and just like go private again so they could just do whatever they want? I would love to see what a Nintendo with no shareholders looked like. But anyway, I thought that was very, very interesting. Here's another story that almost got its own video. Kane was really pushing for this one to get its own video, but I guess it just didn't happen, but we will still mention it here. Naturally, the Nintendo Switch 2 price is increasing in a few months. And, you know, again, say what you will about Nintendo, I do not see this as just like a purely nasty, greedy move. President Furukawa seems to be genuinely displeased that it came to this. Like, he really is not happy that they had to do this. He's not sitting there like twiddling his mustache and thinking about all the money he's gonna make. Most other companies raise their prices and those changes go into effect basically immediately, but he's given us about 4 months and he's been talking about how this may impact Switch 2 sales and even just the customers. In an investor meeting, he was talking about how this higher price may pose something of a barrier for customers, and he said, "We will prepare a robust software lineup to enhance the Switch 2 ownership value. We will work diligently to overcome this barrier." Now, I think this could be interpreted in a few different ways. It's very much possible that this really is just kind of corporate speak, and like this isn't really him saying that they're gonna make any changes to their actual plans. It could even be reasonable to imagine that they have their plans. They're always trying to be efficient. They're always trying to make games at a good pace and not let the budgets and the timelines balloon out of control and all that. So like, why would raising the price by $50 really have that much of an impact? But at the same time, he obviously recognizes that the market be crazy right now, and he has not ruled out the possibility of further price increases down the line. I mean, you can't rule that out. The whole entire industry is just a mess right now. So I think it's at least possible that because of this, because of them having to raise the price and being worried that they may have to raise the price again later, I don't know. It could actually mean that this will affect their plans, that they will have to be more aggressive than even they imagined when it comes to just getting games to the customers, to just providing games for people to buy so that they've got stuff to play on the Switch 2. Yes, we're sorry that you have to spend a lot more money on the system, but we want to make sure that you've got a lot of stuff to play. At that meeting, there was an investor who was concerned about how long it takes to make games these days and was wondering if Nintendo would be able to keep up the pace, and Furukawa said the following: "Ideally, we would like to deliver new titles more frequently and in a more timely manner, but as you pointed out, software development periods have become longer than before. Even so, we will continue to work on various initiatives to ensure that many titles can be played on Nintendo Switch 2 by devising improvements to our development system and development process. Regarding the future, we are preparing a variety of new titles for Nintendo Switch 2, regardless of whether they are so-called major titles or not. In addition, we have new titles prepared for the second half of this fiscal year, in addition to those already announced, and we will provide details at the appropriate time." I like his so-called major titles. I don't know what you consider a major title, you know. I think Yoshi the Mysterious Book is a major title. That's what he's saying to himself. So yeah, point is, whether or not he's saying this directly here, we really don't know, but I would not be surprised if they do have to start getting, just purely out of necessity. They have to be more aggressive than ever. They have to find ways to get games out faster, spend less time being confident that your handful of tentpole releases are just going to float the system for the foreseeable future, you know? I mean, it's good. It is a really, really good thing, you know? Stay hungry. That's everybody always delivers their best work when they're hungry, when they're a little bit scared. And then additionally, it's nice that he has confirmed here that there are other titles coming in the second half of 2026 that they've not announced yet. So yeah, basically confirmation that there will be more games announced. I don't think that's necessarily surprising. However, I do still think that a Nintendo Direct in June would make a whole lot of sense if they've got more games to announce for the second half of the year. But IDK, we'll see. Another little tidbit to come out of the investor meeting, President Furukawa also says that he would like for the Switch 2 to essentially have as long a life as the Switch 1 did, which is really not surprising, but I don't know. It's nice to hear him say it, I guess. And it's funny because anywhere I read this, lots of grumbling comments, lots of people being like, I don't think so. You know, there's this idea that the Switch 2 is just way too underpowered and the technology in it is just it's already outdated. But I could not disagree more. I think the Switch 2, if anything, is even more poised to have a nice long life than the Switch 1 was. The Switch 1 already performed so well, despite being such just laughably weak technology. The Switch 1 proved essentially these graphics are good enough. They're basically good enough. And so now with the Switch 2, the fact that it's any better at all and now it's running a lot more stably, just everything about it is it's shined up just that much more. It runs that much better. I don't know. I really do think that as far as most of the market is concerned, this really is as good as it needs to be. And you could argue that when PS6 and Project Helix come around, then Nintendo will be even more behind. But I just don't see it that way. I don't see it as this arms race where things just keep advancing and advancing and advancing. I really do think we're reaching a point where graphics are becoming just kind of good enough. And there are people, indeed, in comment sections everywhere who are just like, this hardware is too weak for me. I'm used to playing on my PC at 120 frames per second, yada yada. And that's a valid opinion to have. If you feel that way, that's perfectly fine. It's just that these systems are not made for you. You are not the target audience. You do not represent very much of the target audience whatsoever. And especially with where hardware prices are at, I think Nintendo would probably be wise to just kind of hunker down and just be like, yeah, we're in no hurry to refresh this hardware. Maybe we'll get a pro version at some point if you want to just push for even higher resolutions and frame rates and whatnot, but still more or less have the games look the same. I think that's going to do just fine for them. Even if this thing does end up having a 7 or 8 year lifespan, I think that'll be all right. And then speaking of the Switch 2 price increase, apparently it caused a pretty dramatic drop in Nintendo's stock prices, which is funny because apparently a lot of investors were like kind of pushing for Nintendo to raise the price. And then when they raised the price, a bunch of them noped out. Their share price dropped nearly 10% pretty much in like a second. However, it has since stabilized a little bit. It's kind of like split the difference at this moment. I mean, obviously, like even by the time you listen to this, it could change pretty dramatically. But so now it's really only down like a, 4 or 5% or something. And then to close out this this kind of financial results cleanup, I'm not normally one to call out what I feel are bad opinions. We are all entitled to our opinions. However, I do think it's nice to have an occasional reminder that even people in places of great influence, people, professionals, people who get paid to do particular jobs, oftentimes these people are hired by much bigger companies to do this job. They can be just wrong. Just very, very, very wrong. An analyst by the name of Dr. Serkan Toto was speaking with VGC and said the following: "We truly live in weird times. Usually unit sales of new consoles increase in year 2, whereas Nintendo now predicts them to drop 17%. This is of course due to the price hikes that seem to be inevitable against the backdrop of the memory crisis we are in, but Nintendo is trying to build an initial install base and now got caught on the wrong foot." Okay, all reasonable so far. But then, overall, I expect this fiscal year to be a relatively silent one for Nintendo. Second year of the Switch 2's life. Relatively silent. Yes, Nintendo has lowered their forecasts because of having to raise prices. Yes, it is true they were caught in kind of a weird situation. It was kind of a bad time to launch a new console. But the idea, like the word silent, that's very, like silent means like nothing happening. Does that mean like Nintendo is not saying or doing anything? Does that mean that they're not releasing any games? Does that mean that they're not making any money? Can you give them a second? Do you honestly think that they're not going to be announcing and releasing more big games within the next year that may make a pretty okay amount of money? I don't know. It's a little extreme. Nintendo's gonna do just fine. Yeah, things are not ideal, but they're gonna do just fine. A silent year. That's just laughably wrong. And again, that's coming from a professional analyst, someone whose job it is to do this. And I don't say that to bring down this person, but just to remind everybody else that just the idea of professionalism is fake. It's fake. Everyone is just doing whatever. Everyone is just doing their best. And that very much includes this guy right here. Moving on, Nintendo has put demo kiosks for Yoshi and the Mysterious Book in various retailers across the US. If you yearn for a chance to play a little tiny bit of the Yoshi and the Mysterious Book game, you may do so at select Best Buy, Walmart, GameStop, and Target locations. And I'm a little bummed because I actually would like to just because I just do like an impressions video, play through the demo a couple times, do a video. I'd really like to, but their website does not seem to say who is carrying the demo, so I guess you just gotta call around or something. If anyone wants to drop a comment, if you can confirm if the demo is in any of these stores in the greater Seattle area, I'd appreciate it. So last week, someone discovered that within the free-to-play game Super Animal Royale, apparently you can access a web browser, and from that web browser, you can access YouTube on your Switch 2. Right now, there is still no official YouTube app for Switch 2. Apparently, it's still coming. Team YouTube said, while YouTube is still unavailable on the Nintendo Switch 2, we're hoping to be offering it soon. Yeah, apparently you can access YouTube in this very, very specific way. Unfortunately, though, someone somewhere has patched something. I don't know if it was just like a hot fix or whatever, like on Nintendo's end. I'm not sure. But apparently, unfortunately, this no longer works. Apparently now, if you try, you get an error code. Oh well. Nintendo has finally given a release date and price for the Legend of Zelda Mineru amiibo. I say finally because that's the way that it's being presented everywhere else, even though I personally was not aware that this amiibo was going to exist. I must have missed that. When did they announce that? I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. But yeah, apparently there's a Mineru amiibo, and I guess it's, I don't know if it's like big. It is articulatable. It's got articulatey, bendy arms, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know if it's like kind of like the Guardian amiibo, how it's a kind of jumbo size. I kind of hope that it is. I'm not really sure. But apparently it's going to be $35 here in the US. It's coming out September 17th. It looks pretty cool. I do think it's a really cool design. I think Mineru does look pretty neato. You know, if anyone has not completed the, if anyone doesn't know what this is or what it means or why it's called Mineru, I think you just still need to beat Tears of the Kingdom. It's like, it's related to like the last quest that you do at the very, very end of Tears of the Kingdom. I think a lot of people were like not even aware that this thing exists. I don't know, maybe by now everyone knows what Mineru is, but yeah, anyway. Cool amiibo though. Nintendo is launching a new Switch 2 bundle at participating retailers here in North America. This is called the Choose Your Game bundle, and it's kind of cool. It's $500 basically, and then you get to choose between Mario Kart World, DK Bonanza, and Pokopia. So, you know, like basically the 3 biggest games on the system right now. And if, you know, before the price increase, if a Switch 2 would normally be $450, then that means you're getting one of these games for $50. In the case of the $70 games, you're saving $20. If you get Mario Kart World, you're saving $30. Which is nice because they discontinued the Mario Kart World bundle at the end of last year, which was disappointing because it was the only way to get Mario Kart World for a decent price. So it's really, really nice that right here, they're giving us a similar bundle and you get to choose between the 3 games. And you know what? It's also cool that they are raising the price, but they have given us 4 months and they're giving us another bundle and another opportunity to save some money on these games before the price. Like, they're basically giving us like, okay, hey, if you want to get in on this before the price goes up, then here you go. Here's a nice bundle with a little bit of savings before we raise the price. So that's nice. And then finally, in a groundbreaking development, Nintendo has announced that they are changing the name of the My Nintendo store. Are you ready for this? Are you sitting down? Are you firmly grasping the arms of your chair, and you've got to plant your feet on the ground and grit your teeth and close your eyes as hard as you can? The new name is the Nintendo Store. Thank you for watching this edition of the Topic Arlo Nintendo News Roundup. I'm Arlo, and I made some chia seed pudding. I'm gonna go check and see how it turned out.